Welcome to Google's first ever Education on Air conference. Today's educators are all joining us, and we're holding 46 Hangouts on Air, where we're leading discussions on a number of topics in education technology. I just want to say thanks to all the presenters for giving their time to this, and for all of you guys who are watching us in the audience. All of our presenters have early access to a technology we have called Hangouts on Air. And that's a technology that allows you to broadcast and to record your Hangouts through Google+. To watch any of the sessions today, all you have to do is go to our presenters Google+ page at whatever time you want to, and then you can watch all the you can find a list of all the sessions and links to presenters Google+ pages on our conference website, which is at sites.google.com/site/EduOnAir. That's all one word. So again, I really just want to say thanks to all of our presenters, thanks to all of you teachers and all the folks who are joining us. And I want to go ahead and present Rich Kiker, who is going to talk to us about blended learning. So Rich does a lot of blended learning at his school district in Pennsylvania. He's going to tell us all about it, how he does it, the magic that it creates in the classroom, outside of the classroom, any of the challenges and benefits that he's had in setting it up. So I'm just going to hand it over to Rich. So Rich, take it away.
Thank you, Kristen. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank my guests coming in to have this conversation today. I'd like to thank Kristen for sending me this awesome EduOnAir shirt that I can wear today. So it's going to be a fun time. I'd like to encourage everyone in here to please use the chat, ask questions during the presentation. I'd like to stay as informal and responsive to what the questions are in the stream and the questions are of our panel here. So I'm going to go into screen share, and I'm going to share a presentation to drive what we're going to talk about today. But then I'll be reaching out to many of you here in the Hangout to ask questions and hear what's going on. And please get your feedback, your comments, and go from there. So let's get a screen share started. And I'm hoping everyone can see this. Can I just get a yes, Rich, I can see this, if you can see this?
I can see it.
Outstanding. Awesome. Thank you. So this is the session today. I want to mention that this link here down at the bottom, the tinyurl.com/EduOnAir blended, is a shortcut that will take you to a page that I posted not only with this presentation published to it, but also it has several other resources that may be helpful to our viewers today and ways to contact me. We got a little bit of a late start, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. And I'm going to start with this icon here from it's published by Blackboard from an EduViews publication. And this is the blended learning continuum. Okay, so you can see here that when we want to define what blended learning is and what we're talking about, there's a full range from full cyber, completely online. I would consider that blended as well, at least at our school district, because students are still engaged in the community and participate in curricular and extracurricular learning opportunities, all the way down to possibly classroom instruction, the flipped classroom, or any type of blended, mixed, hybrid solution that a school, class, or teacher chooses to implement. Has anyone here seen this continuum before? Or if you haven't seen this one, as you're looking at it now, does anything strike you? Is there anything that you agree with, disagree with, any of those things? Then I'm going to keep on going. I just wanted to bring this out there to at least initially present the idea of blended learning to everyone in this room. Okay, now this one I'm going to explain this briefly, and then I'm going to ask my participants here in the room to comment on this, because to me this is a staggering chart. The data on this chart is well, kind of drives what we should be doing. So if you take a look at this, this is the learning environment and how students will be learning in the coming, well, 2.5 years. The growth range in this chart is from 2010 to 2015. And you can see the increase of populations in homeschool, virtual school, online charters, and of course blended learning, which burst up to 10.07% of learners, or I'm sorry, 10.07 million students. Christensen's book that came out a few years back, Disrupting Class. I remember the first time I read it, he mentioned that by 2018, 50% of all online or all high school classes will have at least an online component, so blended. When I heard that, I was impressed, and I thought it was a nice comment, but I didn't know if I believed it. Now, if you ask me that question, and I know that if you ask the author Christensen that question, it would respond with, that's not high enough, not nearly enough. More than 50% will probably be online or blended by 2018, and that kind of is an indicator to us of what are we doing in education, who are we serving, what is our purpose as public school educators, and what are we getting students ready for. So let me ask my guests here, my panel, if you don't mind, what impacts you? What do you see here? Is there anything that's new to you? Is there anything that's impressing to you? Or is there anything that's just staggering or moves you in general?
One of the things that I've noticed by looking at this diagram and in the work that I do is that more and more schools are finding that they have to go to blended so they can better create personalized opportunities for learning in their classrooms. Because if there are blended options, it really creates new opportunities for the teacher to approach instruction that can be crafted towards each student.
And on the student side, I know I saw a diagram a while back that most students prefer blended rather than a fully online class or a fully offline class. They would rather have a mixture of both. And it just makes sense. It's the way students learn.
Rich and panel, Lisa Daps from Southern California. I'm a former elementary school principal and have done that work for 14 years. And what I can say by looking at this chart and in some very passionate discussions with Rich is there were many times when I had students who had to leave my school, had to go on ventures with their parents, had to be out of school for weeks at a time due to injuries. And back in even just 3 to 4 years ago, we did not have these platforms where I could have told my parents, no problem, there's an option. There's a wiki that we have for our school site. There's teachers on that wiki. You'll be able to get delivery of instruction in that model. And what an amazing tool that would have been for that student in those families. And now that we have the power to harness that, I think it's just amazing.
That's wonderful. Thanks for the initial comments, everyone. I appreciate that. And if anyone else, while I'm delivering this this presentation here, has something to say or add, please at any time enter it into the chat window, and we'll address your needs or questions. So now we know what blended learning is. We know what's going to drive our conversation. We can see the numbers. We can see the growth and what's happening in education around the globe. Well, this is a U.S. Number, but around this is really happening around the world. In fact, many nations, particularly on the Pacific Rim, are further advanced and further along in blended and online solutions than we are. So what do we do about that? So we know the need is there. We know that the numbers are coming. We know this is the world we live in. One thing we've done at Palisades, and of course John Venner is here with me from Palisades. He's one of our teachers who's doing amazing things with the flipped classroom, and I'll come back to that as we progress in our session. But one of the things we've done in our model of community-based e-learning excellence is that we've really tried to figure out the way that we bring in the entire community to participate. If you notice this graphic here, you can see that students are the main cog in the system. Of course, they're the ones that we're there to provide service to. They're the ones we're helping to grow every day. But equally important here, and I think this is critical to any blended solution, is that we have to take into account that the educators are also expanding their technical capacity. And there's a professional development piece there that cannot be overlooked. There's a collaboration piece, professional development, a culture, a way of encouraging teachers. That's quite important. There's also the community. Providing mobile e-learning solutions is something we're trying to do for our community, from apps to powerful community relationships. If any education program, blended or otherwise, is going to be successful, that has to be a key component of what is happening. I see Kristen here in the chat window saying it's so critical to a successful blended initiative, meaning the community. I don't think we could agree more. We're very community-based, and I think that's one of the things that has helped us to be successful in this process.
Rich, we're actually getting a question that I think might be sort of relevant right now. You're talking about community and you're talking how important it is. Shannon Price wants to know, with it flipped classroom and teachers no longer necessarily being the main deliverers of the content, can you justify the teacher's job in the classroom will still be necessary? Do you still see a teacher's job, being outsourced in the next 10, 15, or 20 years? That's a fear Shannon has, and I think it's a fear a lot of teachers talk about, and I think your community point is actually really important here. Can you speak to that?
It's a great question. I bet John Venner over there is jumping out of his seat. There's absolutely no way any type of media content, recorded content, any content will be able to replace an educator. There's something to say about the art of teaching, right? So what a teacher does in providing a safe learning environment for a student, whether that's online, in the flipped classroom space during the day, or otherwise, can never be replaced or outsourced. There's no way that we can replace, teachers that are, come in at 7:30 in the morning, turn off their lives for the next 10 hours, and forget everything that's happening to them, and take on the world from psychologist to social worker, teacher, friend, big brother, everything else that they serve in the classroom. We know that that's what the value of teaching is. I actually never looked at teachers as content developers. I always looked at them as educators, and I certainly consider myself an educator and not a content expert when I was teaching, because let's make sure we're addressing the holistic need of our students and we're addressing the whole child while we're doing these things. I want to take a minute there actually and see if John Venner has anything to say to that. John and I worked together for a long time in the Media Technology Academy at Palisades, where we specialized in meeting the needs of diverse learners. So I'd encourage John, if you had anything to say on that, John, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Well, your comment about me jumping out of my skin is correct. I have a much richer relationship with my students, and my students have a much richer relationship with the content since the classes have gone from all the way from my class that I'm fully flipping all the way to a much more blended learning environment. I think we all know that, well, I as a math teacher know the demands that the Common Core is going to put on us, and math talk and perseverance and a deeper understanding of the curriculum. The only way that I see all of that happening is by providing some of the initial delivery of the raw skill, of the raw concept outside of the classroom, and then bringing the conversations that should have taken place. And I have a 45-minute class. If I introduce a skill for 45 minutes, we never get to the stuff that I'm bursting out of my skin to discuss with the kids. Even the homework assignments that they have now, I just started using the new TED Ed site, and even their homework assignments are always start with some type of delivery or re-delivery of the content, and then some immediate feedback being provided to them by asking some questions and having the answers immediately available to them. And then we come into class and we hit the ground running. I have never had a stronger relationship with my students than I've had within the last year, and our classroom walls have completely broken down. We email. I have a bamboo pad at home that I'll jot notes on and shoot it off to them. They are so involved with the content now that I'm actually making gains in the classroom I've never made before by having some of that, I'm going to say, grunt work take place outside of the room. So I'm having a blast with it, and the kids are having a blast with it, and I think they feel empowered, and I think they feel respected and trusted to have some of that take place outside the classroom, and it's really paying off in my room. So I can't say I feel more valuable as a teacher now than I ever have been.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that, and thanks for the question, Shannon. That was a pretty relative point. And I'm sure we could go through everyone in this room. I don't think anyone will think or encourage or ever hope that teachers are taken out of the center of impacting a child's life. So thanks for that point. I'm going to jump back into this presentation to talk some more about where we're going with what we're going to explain today. So I guess the next question is, what are the main challenges, or what are the three components in my mind that you need when you're designing and building a very a very strong blended online any type of hybrid system. Okay, and I see it as like a three-headed monster, right? So there's a LMS or learning management system that is the platform, it's the road, it's the pathway to get students to where they need to be successful in their approved outcomes and what you're looking for in your planned courses. The two is the content. The content is sometimes the trickiest of these three, because if you start a new program and you have teachers who are interested in being part of it, but they're looking at a blank screen and have nowhere to start, that can sometimes be a challenge, and we'll come back to that. And then third, I'm going to talk about pedagogy, or the design and the philosophy of how you deliver the education to these learners. So I'm going to jump right in here with the learning management system and talk about some of the things we've deployed, some of the things I've been successful with, and go from there. So of course, the LMS, as I mentioned, is the learning management system. It's the platform for learning. It's kind of home base. It's where everybody goes to meet. It's kind of like this hangout room right here. Everyone goes and gets the content. The learning takes place in that space, and it's probably any of these three you consider the most important. But you know what you're really looking for in the LMS is sometimes I like to say robust options, reliability, and a user-friendly interface. When we started our cyber school and our blended solutions, we went with blendedschools.net, which is a nonprofit in Pennsylvania. They use Blackboard. They are outstanding folks to work with. We probably reviewed close to a dozen vendors and solutions a year and a half ago. And Blended Schools came out ringing loud as the big winner because they had a number of really high quality content courses. I shouldn't say a number, close to 100 courses already developed that we could offer to our teachers as a starting point. Real valuable, real deep content, wonderful, wonderful people to be involved with. You know, as you progress on, maybe you're not looking for something like Blackboard. Maybe you're not looking for a partnership like Blended Schools. Well, that's not the only option. I have Anthony here from Haiku Learning with us today. One of the beautiful things about Haiku Learning is that it's in the cloud. It's a really powerful LMS, and I'm sure there's many tuned into this conversation right now would love to hear that the Google Apps integration is built into Haiku, so that if you are deployed using Google Apps for EDU, you have single sign-on, you have a number of features that benefit you and the community. So I think that's very valuable, and I'd like Anthony to say a word or two about that and maybe some plans about what Haiku is doing here.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rich. I think what our philosophy is, especially when related to blended learning, is that we're really approaching the learning management system as a platform for all teachers, and we're trying to make blended learning easier to do, not just something that's for a tech-savvy teacher, but really for all teachers. And you know, as more consumer-oriented tools are gaining traction in schools, and as you know, Google Apps for education is becoming more and more prevalent. These are the kinds of things that that make our specific LMS stand out. I think going forward and in the future, there's like some you know, further integrations that we can do with Google, including Mail and Calendar, that we're really excited about, and hopefully someday even Hangouts.
Thanks for that, Anthony. I mean, and that's such a great point you mentioned about how blended it is for everyone. And my feeling is that we progress, and as the evolution of the LMS continues, simple, beautiful, clean interfaces like Haiku are going to be challenging some of these big players because of their willingness to integrate across platforms or willingness to be involved. And I know there's a ton of Google Apps people in this conversation who would like to hear those things. So thanks for sharing, Anthony. I appreciate it.
And Rich, I have a question here from T. Metcalf, and I think this might be a common question across the board for some folks who maybe aren't using one. Could you just explain what an LMS is, a learning management system, and just talk to, you know, different ones? And then we have questions about, like, what are the good free LMSs? What about Moodle? What about Edmodo? Does anybody have any feedback on that? And I don't want to hijack your presentation if you want to address those later. But those are some of the questions that we're seeing.
Hijack away. I like the questions. It lets me know that we're lets me know that we're answering the needs of the audience. So yes, let me step back there for a minute, go a little deeper than just calling the LMS the platform for learning. So the LMS is going to be the system or the collection of systems that you use to post, share, develop, and basically deliver the learning to the students in the classroom. Okay, Blackboard has been the biggest player in this space for many years, although with many up-and-coming new tools, Moodle being one of them, Haiku, of course, being one of them. I guess Moodle isn't a new tool, but a lot of competition out there. They've lost market share, and there's a much more diverse offering. So I heard a lot of things in there. Moodle, of course, yes, is a free platform. It's free in the sense that you have to install and develop the Moodle server on your own. Of course, there's service providers that you can outsource to who will host Moodle for you. It's also very robust. I would put it on the robust scale right there with Blackboard. It's deep. It has a lot of features. I don't know if anyone in this conversation heard or read recently a couple articles about moving away from the bigger platforms because they're not being used in the capacity that is very few people will deploy 100% of Blackboard. Now we have some teachers that are using some really deep features, so that's been a benefit to us. But there are many free ones. So if you're just looking to get started and test the waters, there's free or close to free. Haiku would be close to free. Edmodo, Schoology. There's a number of other free platforms. I mean, Edmodo is kind of the big player in the free world right now. I don't know if I would qualify it as a full LMS. It doesn't have certain features that you would want to see, but it's a wonderful platform for learning and a wonderful tool to deliver, especially if you're looking for something to go down lower in the grades to maybe middle and even down to the primary levels. Vinny, yes, I forgot. Vinny is in this room. Vinny loves Saki too, and Saki is a very nice LMS as well. Another one that's very clean and easy to use. I would encourage anyone listening to this, just for the sake of time, to reach out to me at any point. I'll make sure everyone has my information here at the end, and we can have those conversations. I can provide you with even deeper resources. Okay, so then after the LMS, some of the things you need to think about our content. I mentioned earlier that one of the reasons blended schools added so much value to Palisades, or the district that John and I are with, is because they had this great content. You need to decide if you're going to have your educators generate all that content. I'm of the feeling that if there is some available content and things that you can support them with while building their courses, I say go for it. Blended Schools was able to give us this really rich collection of pre-made courses, and pre-made sounds terrible, but they were built with UBD. Kristen's in the room. I know she'll like hearing that. She's working for Grant Wiggins now. So these courses were designed with UBD in mind. They're designed to meet Pennsylvania standards, and they're all PA-approved courses. So the quality was really high. If you're going to do that, it helps when you have something to start from. The bonus with their courses is that our teachers could edit, take away, add, and full edit rights to add what they want. Another question to consider is, does it match board-approved curriculum and outcomes? We have planned courses. Our planned courses didn't change for our district. We still needed to meet all those outcomes that we promised the board we would meet. So we had to make sure we get a curriculum people involved and match up and make sure everything is going in the right direction. Another big concern or thing to topic to address. Then I have some resources in here. I'm pretty sure the links aren't active in the Hangout. However, again, I have the link here at the end for you, and you can dig deeper into these. We're seeing the emergence of OER, or open education resources, with tons of open content from Hippocampus to, well, there's a number of them, CK12, the Flexbooks, tons and tons of content that is out there, is outstanding, and at the disposal of educators around the world who are trying to use blended and online learning. I have in here with a self-learning movement. I consider things like MITx, iTunes U, Coursera, which is the awesome new program coming out of Stanford where there's these huge open courses that everyone can take. And I just read this morning about edX, which is a partnership between Harvard and MIT that are developing a range of open resources for us to take advantage of. So right there, in those 4 pieces, you can find so much open content to add to your courses. And this isn't, like some leftover video at some video site. I mean, these are developed by these professors at MIT and Harvard and Stanford and things like that. So well worth it and wonderful resources to have in the blended learning space.
And
I
some
also
of those
mentioned
folks
here
are
about
actually
MOOCs,
talking. Sorry, Rich. I just wanted to say some of those folks are actually talking about developing certification programs also. So that's really exciting.
That is exciting. Thank you for mentioning that. I mean, anytime you can get students involved in higher ed or things outside the walls of the traditional building, that's always valuable. I mentioned here also MOOCs, which are massive open online courses. Some great things coming out of there. Wonderful article in the New York Times that's in this presentation that people can refer to later. I also didn't want to leave out the middle school and the elementary folks here because sometimes it's overlooked in blended learning. This born2learn.org is a wonderful site to review to kind of get you focused as to what we're dealing with and how we're trying to help kids. If sometimes it always helps to get recentered, and they have great videos to share in professional development sessions or when you're talking about blended learning in your districts or your schools. Of course, we've already heard TED Ed, a new service that came out. John's running away with it. I know Kristen's aware of it. Outstanding for middle school, even high school, but I mean, you can use that even in the lower grade levels as well. I would encourage everyone to take a look at that. And this other new one, I'll even bring this up real quick just to show everyone. DIY for elementary. I absolutely love this site. I just started exploring it in the last week or so. It's a community of kids who make, so kids can come in here and teachers can get involved and build their own portfolio, but it's very interactive and dynamic and has all of these kind of rich media tools that we want to see and engage our learners with. So please don't put it out of your mind if you're sitting there listening to this right now and you're saying, well, I teach third grade, what am I going to do? Look me up. We'll talk, and I'll give you more resources. I'm happy to do that.
Hey, Rich,
so
we have a question.
Stop there for a minute.
Oh, and we have a question if I can interject.
You absolutely can. Please
All
do.
right. So we have a question actually from YouTube, and this is from Yutaka Hitomi. And the question is, how can we implement blended learning when not 100% of students have internet access at home?
Phenomenal question, and one of the downfalls of my existence is that we can't, in this day and age, still get everyone internet access. I don't know if I have the cure-all, but I have some suggestions. Here in Pennsylvania, we're working on meeting the needs of those learners who do not have public access. There's some companies like Comcast and Verizon and Clear who are starting to offer internet or Wi-Fi hotspots to students at a very low price. So we're exploring ways to offer those connected or that hardware for those students to then be connected at home. I often encourage our students, I don't want to hear your internet went down when there's 6 places probably within walking distance, not all districts, but if you can get onto Wi-Fi and get to YouTube to watch a TED video at Burger King or Starbucks, you can walk to your public library as well, and there's really no reason for you to not take advantage of those things that exist. I know some people have issues with that, but I say get it where you can. And if it's available there for free and the quality is high, take advantage of it.
We've actually been in some classes with teachers or having discussions with folks, and this has come up. The teachers have said to the kids, like, hey kids, how many of you guys have a social network? And 100% of the kids raise their hands. So I think that the more and more kids are using technology in their regular lives, in their consumer lives, the more access they'll have to use it and the more reason and the more interest they'll have to use it in their school lives.
I mean, that's a great point. That's a wonderful point. If you ask how many kids have internet access or have availability to get to internet access to do homework, you might get half of a classroom. But if you ask them how many have Facebook accounts that they're on regularly, that's another answer. So good point. I'd like to ask Kristen, actually, if Kristen Swanson, I mentioned UBD and these courses that are developed. You mentioned something to me recently about the design and what you're looking for in certain blended courses. We were talking last week. I'd love for you to share those 3 kind of thought processes or steps in blended learning, if you don't mind.
Sure. So in UBD and in lots of other curricular frameworks, not just UBD, we talk about the 3 stages of learning as acquisition, meaning making, and transfer. So acquisition are the types of things that are best served to flip. So John, in thinking of your classroom, those are probably the videos and feedback and walkthroughs that you're able to give to kids for them to master those basic skills. Whereas meaning making, that's really the opportunity for discussion and exchange and thought and inference, where students are creating new understandings based on the content that they have acquired. And then finally, taking that knowledge and those inferences and moving it into a completely new context that they haven't seen yet. And that would be the transfer component. So by organizing your course around these 3 stages and letting learners know which stage they should be in, it helps you moderate not only the level of difficulty, but the quality of the learning. So here you are, and you're able to do these things, but you're also able to move them into a unique context, and that is possibly one of the most valuable types of learning that we can offer to our students. And with that being said, it's important to note that while it's often easy to think that this is a linear process, first we acquire, then we discuss, and then we transfer, it never occurs that way. We need to give kids and adults the opportunities to explore different pieces of information from different angles and different access points. Maybe you want to start them with the opportunity to transfer straight off the bat and then go back and provide some just-in-time content. But keeping in mind as a designer which phase you're in really helps you to build consistently and effectively in most blended courses.
Thanks a lot, Chris. And I had a lot when we were talking about that, I know I told you how much I value that kind of position. So thanks for sharing.
So actually, there's another question that's coming up, which I think is a really interesting question, and this is for the entire panel, which is what learning analytics solutions are you using to measure blended learning efficacy? So what are like the assessment tools, if you have any?
So I'll start, and then encourage anyone else to jump in if they'd like. So assessment tools for me in blended learning are hopefully engaging project-based learning and those kind of differentiated and student choice outcomes that we want to encourage. So I try to stay in the world of analytics. We're always going to have testing. I know we can battle that one all day, but in the world where we're trying to say what is most critical to students, what are the outcomes? I like to say in a blended course or a face-to-face course, there's a set of outcomes and goals of learning for that particular student or that particular class. How that student chooses to show proficiency or mastery should be, in a lot of ways, a choice of that student. So what I will often do or encourage our teachers to do is, maybe there's a project where you need to share, the fact that you've become proficient in understanding the Civil War or the outcomes of the Battle of Gettysburg. Well, why do we have to pigeonhole everyone and tell them that they have to do it one way? Why can't we provide 3 or 4 different rubrics and project descriptions to our learners and say, if you want to develop a video and publish it on SchoolTube or YouTube if they're of age, or whatever it may be, why can't that be an option? And then why can't they also develop a website or a public Facebook page to spread awareness about something that was a cultural outcome from the Civil War? I mean, we want to talk about higher order thinking. We want to drive those kind of conversations, and I don't think we should shy away from that in blended learning or face-to-face learning. Is anybody else with me on that? Let me get an amen or something.
I'll talk, Rich. So one of the ways that I measure efficacy in the online learning is by having, similar to what you were describing, course milestones. And they are basically allowed to achieve the course milestones in a variety of ways, including one that I may not have thought of. And there are basic rubrics that we use to measure those milestones. We don't necessarily spend as much time grading individual discussion posts or things like that as much as we do the quality of those milestones and the thinking that got them there.
Yep, well said. Well said. Make sure we're assessing the right things, right, and not having 20 points on discussion and 20 points on the final outcome project. That's a good point. Good points. And good question. Thank you for the questions that came in from YouTube and other places. I appreciate that. So the content, we mentioned that. I'm going to touch on this third piece that I consider pedagogy, or for me, it is all about the teachers in this situation. It's something that I'm extremely passionate about, and that is that I will never be part of a solution that does not support the district teachers or the community-based teachers first. It's easy to outsource. It's easy to go places and find educators, and that's great. But if we're really going to put our values in the right place on community, on the culture, and addressing the needs of the learners in our classrooms, these three things I list here about the culture shift, capacity raising, and community value are so critical when you're designing anything like this. We want to empower our teachers. We want to empower our young teachers. I guess I really shouldn't say just our young teachers. We want to empower all of our teachers, even the ones that are at different stages of their career who may be feeling uncomfortable because of the change in technology or whatever it may be for several reasons. We want to make sure that they understand that the goal here is to get them the skills, the development, and empower them to be these types of 21st century educators that we're pushing for. Some things around that are when you're considering professional development and ways that you're designing curriculum, the ways you're designing sessions for your teachers. Don't think that you all have to get together in a room at the high school for 3 days or something like that. And while that's a valuable practice, there's other things that exist. And Kendra's here from Sublime Learning. They develop these wonderful e-teachables, which are these little modules of professional development that encompass a strategy and underutilized technologies. I would highly recommend something like that as part of your professional development plan. I would encourage the unconference model that Kristen's done such a good job with the ed camps. And I know Vinny's been to some of those. People in this room have been to those type of events. We all know how valuable they are. There's nothing to say that there has to be an ed camp in Center City, Philadelphia. You can have an ed camp in your cafeteria if you want. So occupy your cafeteria. The models that I'm speaking about here, John's with us, and we spoke about the flipped classroom already briefly, but when you're talking about pedagogy, think about where you want to start. You don't have to jump in and have a complete cyber program right away if the demand isn't there. You can start slowly. You can start with something as simple as building a flipped classroom, in the sense that the flipped classroom is supporting what you're already doing. Add a video a week for their flipped component at home or their media component at home. You don't have to take the the whole school and flip it over. And I mentioned earlier about the idea about project-based learning and what that means. Another great resource here is this teacher's guide that I've included the link to in this presentation, again, that I will share out for anyone who's watching on YouTube or in the Google Plus stream right now. So Kristen from Google and I were talking about the challenges and what are the big problems when you jump into this space. Well, of course, time, and I guess that goes with effort as well, and that would be my phone ringing at my house in the background. I apologize. The time investment and the work investment. So it's going to take a lot of effort. It takes a lot of legwork and elbow grease to get these kind of things going. The initial investment in terms of dollars, we had to buy equipment, we had to buy certain kinds of professional development, and then we had to, of course, invest in our platform, which was the LMS. And then lastly, the human resources. You need to invest, well, I don't say you need to invest in someone new. You certainly can use existing talent that you have in your district, but make sure you don't try to, half-load this program and go with, assigning a teacher to half of their schedule to try to build a blended learning solution. It's not the right way to go, and the teachers who would then teach in the blended solution will not have the support or the resources that they need to be successful. Lastly here, I put community buy-in. Sometimes can be a different challenge and can be a difficult challenge. I guess if that's not too redundant, I consider some challenges more difficult than others. For us, the community buy-in was almost the easiest thing. Well, it was the easiest thing in the whole process. People knew that this is what we needed to do. Our teachers believed that we had the right idea in mind and we had the right motives driving our causes. Our community was excited about it. Our school board was excited about it. So the community buy-in came easy for us. And I would say the number one way to be able to do that and ensure that support is to be transparent in the whole process. Tell people what you're trying to do. be clear about your goals, talk about what you want your outcomes to be, and everything seemed to fall in place for us in that process.
That's
I'm going to
great.
open it up here for, I know we're coming close to the end. Sure.
I just wanted to add a couple of questions that we're seeing. Well, actually, first, I want to point out that in the stream, Kristen Swanson's ed camps are getting tons of love. Can we give Kristen a second to just tell us a little tiny bit about ed camps? Since it's
No, I really don't like her. I'm not even sure why I invited her to this session today.
Let's have Lisa do it. Lisa, give us some ed camp love.
I love EdCamp. Well, let me just talk real quickly, and then I really want Kristen to talk. It's because of the great work that our friends, my Twitter friends, my personal learning network on the East Coast began with the EdCamp movement that we began an EdCamp movement here in Southern California. Now, unfortunately, it's not as large as the EdCamp movement in the East Coast, but really need to give a tip of the hat, a powerful one to Dan Callahan, and you can find him on Twitter and all over the place. But he really worked with Kristen and Mary Beth Hertz and Ann Linus on the East Coast to develop this powerful, amazing PD that is driven by instructors, driven by educators, and called it EdCamp. It's from the idea of bar camps. It's amazing, and because of the great work they all did on the East Coast, we started an EdCamp OC, and this year an EdCamp OCLA in Southern California, and we hope to keep it growing.
And if you're unfamiliar to ed camps, they are free unconferences, and there's probably one coming up near you. We've had over 101 nationwide as well as internationally in countries like Chile. We had one in Hong Kong, and we had one in Norway, I believe. So they're growing at an incredible rate, and it's really just about no experts in the room. Everybody shares, everybody learns, and everybody has a lot of fun. So we have one coming up in Philly. It's our 3rd annual on May 19th. It's free. We'd love to see you there. But check the EdCamp wiki. I will stick the link in the chat because there's probably one coming up near you, and it's totally free and so much fun. It's sort of like this Hangout times a whole day.
Maybe we could do an EdCamps via Hangouts.
Oh, that would be fun. I like it.
And that's where it starts. Here we go.
And then the other thing I wanted to say, Rich, was you're getting a lot of information around the challenges of jumping into the space, and specifically Peter Zing would like you to please explain the problem of half-loading the BL program. Do you mean that we shouldn't have a pilot of 1 or 2 grade levels? I think, oh, the blended learning program. I think it was more about half-loading a teacher, right? Like half-loading one person with too many things to do.
Okay, so let me just touch on that again here. I think that if you're going to commit to a blended learning solution, and you don't already have an instructional coach or an instructional technology coach or some type of coaching model in your school, you would need that. Now, the program that we deployed was, we went right for the gusto from the get-go. We have a full online program. We have blended solutions. You know, John is using the same flipped classroom platform that our high school teachers are using to teach full cyber courses to, you know, students that are dispersed or who don't come into the building regularly. So when I mean you have to have somebody ready to go, don't say to a guidance counselor, this happens too often in education, right? So don't say to a guidance counselor, you know, we're going to bring on a half-time guidance counselor, and with the other half of your time, we would like you to train the entire school district on how to embed and start using blended learning. That is a terrible model, and if anyone listening or anyone that was tuned in would like me to speak to your administrator, please feel free to have them call me or contact me through my page. What I mean is you should be committed to this as a pedagogical component of everything that you do and the entire instruction district-wide. It isn't something to say, oh, I heard this cool thing about blended learning and that we can use Edmodo or Haiku to start our online classes. That would not work. I think you need to be a little bit more concentrated in that. And, you know, looking at this slide here, this final slide that I posted for everyone, you know, when we talked about what the successes are, well, I would ask you, you know, what are you preparing learners for? And then make your own successes. If your goal is to get students college ready. Well, how are you doing that without giving them the experience of online learning or blended learning, knowing that a third to a half of all college classes will be online or have a blended component this year in the United States? What career are you getting those students ready for? One that they don't need to be digitally literate or have the internet capability to act in a social environment. So we could be here all day, but the successes are deep, they're rich, they are the things that we need to be doing for kids to get them ready for the life that they're going to live, and it's our responsibility as educators to do that, and that's what we owe our children. So I'll stop talking and let everyone else jump in now.
Yeah, Rich, I tried to keep my mouth shut through your whole presentation because I have a bad habit of talking and making things drag on. But now that you're done, I'll throw my 2 cents in. And 2 things that you touched on that I really wanted to continue to talk about was using the community as a resource. And I think we need to look past the community and think about other ways that we could pull the community back into the classroom to interact with students. I mean, I live in farm country. You know where I live. If people don't, I live in Hunterdon County. I mean, we have more cows than we do people around here. But we have plenty of businesses that are more than willing to jump in and help out in our classrooms. And I think it's absolutely an awesome learning experience for our students when they're able to actually make these real-world connections and work with people outside of the school district. They just learn so much more effectively. And then one of the other things that has come up in our school with the flipped classroom model is that the teachers just don't have time. They don't have the time to prepare this and work through this because there's a lot of work that has to go into making a flipped classroom model work. And my suggestion since the start that's actually been pretty effective has been, put the power in your students' hands. Let your students work on the videos and the projects and the units for the flipped classroom model. I mean, we don't need to sit here and design everything ourselves when we have a room full of 30 kids who are more than eager to help out. And now this is the young side of me speaking here. There's nobody better that I learn from than someone my age. So really, even if it doesn't seem like it's an effective teaching model that your students are using when they're preparing the flipped classroom materials, they are. I mean, students have an unbelievable way to connect with their own peers, and I really think that unless we're tapping into that as much as we can, we're missing out on an absolutely amazing resource. That's my spiel.
That's good stuff, and I can't agree more. The experiential learning, having people engaged. Not everyone is a 19-year-old director of technology like you, so I don't know how many 19-year-olds will be able to come in and help people like you, but you're absolutely right. That community involvement beyond just reaching out to them and getting them in to help as well, I see a lot of value in that. I agree. I know we're coming close on our time here. I don't know if Kristen, if you have any more questions from the audience, or if anyone else has some closing thoughts before we start to power down here and end this broadcast for the day.
I think we've answered most of the audience's questions, but I definitely wanted to let them know, everyone who's watching, that your conversation can continue in the comments section here, so don't feel like you have to stop just because we're getting offline.
I agree. I agree. The conversation should continue. That's the purpose of using things like Google Hangouts and the new EduOnAir feature. The point is to expose people and then just start the conversation. And I hope that's what we've done for a lot of people viewing today. I want to say thanks to all of our participants who came in and helped me today. Your feedback was great. Your participation was great, and I'm happy to be connected with all of you. Thanks for your contributions.
And I'd like to say thanks to Rich and thanks to all you guys, and I feel really safe about the future of our world with you guys being the teachers of our kids. So thank you all.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you being here today, and I'm sure I'll talk to all of you here at some point very soon.
Thanks, Rich, and thanks, everybody else. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone.